Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session AI Governance That Actually Works from Policy to Practice. I am Shilpa Sharma, and I will be your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which last 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any question during the webinar to organizer or a speaker, please use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check your internet connections or you may log out and log in again. An important announcement for our audience. To earn your CPE credit certificate, attend the entire live webinar. Then send an email to cybertalks@ecouncil.org from your registered email ID mentioning the webinar title and the full name you want on the certificate. If the email deadline is missed, only webinars from the current and previous month will be eligible for certificates. Also, we would like to announce to our audience about the special handouts. Take the screenshot of the running webinar and post in your social media handle of LinkedIn or Twitter, tagging EC Council and using hashtag ECC Cybertalks. We will share free handouts to our first 10 audience. We are excited to introduce new AI-focused certifications from EC Council designed to prepare professionals for an AI-driven world. COASP, CRAGE, AIE, and CAIPM. Out of this, these two are fully AI-focused security certifications. COASP is Certified Offensive AI Security Professional. In today's evolving AI cybersecurity landscape, traditional offensive security is no longer sufficient. COASP equips cybersecurity professionals like you with skills in AI testing, AI threat intelligence, prompt injection risk, model exploitation, and securing AI environments. CRAGE is Certified Responsible AI Governance and Ethics. Amid increasing regulatory and ethical concerns, CRAGE prepares professionals to implement responsible AI frameworks, manage AI risk, and ensure transparency and compliance. EC Council also offers two foundational programs designed for broader and beginner level audiences, that is AIE, which is Artificial Intelligence Essentials. AIE is designed for beginners and professionals who want to build strong AI fundamentals. It covers machine learning basics, generative AI concepts, real world uses cases, and how AI is transforming industries. This program builds confidence and clarity for anyone starting their AI journey. CAIPM is Certified AI Program Manager. It focuses on adopting, managing, and scaling AI initiatives while effectively leading AI project life cycles and delivering measurable business value. In addition to this, AC Council has integrated AI-specific modules into its flagship certifications through CEH Professionals understands how AI is impacting ethical hacking. In CPENT, they examine AI-powered penetration testing, and in CCSO security leaders gain insight into how AI is shaping governance, risk, and compliance. We invite you to explore these certifications and take the next step in leading the future of AI. For this, please visit our website ecouncil.org for more details.
AI is no longer a future technology. It's the foundation of today's critical systems, from structuring workflows to governing how systems interact. It writes, it reviews, it approves, it denies. But most AI failures don't start with the model. They start with no one in charge and no one accountable. Pilots that never scale. Projects that burn budget but never deliver value. Models that are powerful but biased, opaque, and impossible to defend in front of regulators. The technology is advancing. The leadership to control it isn't. Welcome to the new standard of AI leadership, built on EC Council's proprietary ADG framework for AI. Introducing the Enterprise AI Credential Suite, setting the new benchmark for how AI must be adopted, defended, governed, The Certified AI Program Manager turns AI from buzzword into business outcome. They lead adoption, align AI with mission, connect data, security, and operations, and take AI from pilot into production to profit. The Certified Offensive AI Security Professional breaks AI first so you don't get broken. Hands-on mastery to hunt vulnerabilities, stress test models and pipelines, and armor systems before real threats strike. The Certified Responsible AI Governance and Ethics Professional makes sure that what you build can be defended. They translate laws into controls, ethics into policies, and AI risk into trusted innovation. AI Essentials builds the foundation for an AI-powered workforce. AI concepts, responsible usage, AI-driven tools and systems for teams ready to thrive in AI. Get ready to build an AI security culture that leads adoption and accountability by turning AI into an advantage you can trust. EC Council, bridging the gap between technical AI goals and real-world outcomes.
If you want to know more, kindly visit our website given in the chat section. Now let's hear directly from a phenomenal speaker, Dr. Kimberly KJ Haywood, Principal CEO at Nomad Cyber Concepts. Let's give her a warm virtual welcome and dive right in. Without any further delay, I would hand over the session to you, Dr. KJ.
Hi, Shivli, thank you. My first question is, can the audience see my screen? Because I'm not
Uh,
certain if they can.
no, KJ, we cannot see your screen.
Okay, we apologize. There has been some technical issues on our side, audience, so please forgive. Um, I am not sure why it stopped sharing. So if you have a suggestion, I'm definitely open.
Mhm.
Because I don't want to delay the presentation for all of you, because I have lots of great information that I'd love to share with you this morning or this evening, depending upon where you're located.
Uh, uh, I think KJ, then we can share screen. I think I will ask one of my team member to share the screen.
Okay,
Just,
okay,
just a moment. Just a moment.
okay. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your patience.
KJ, I have asked one of my team member to share the screen, as it won't be possible for me because I will be hosting. So she would be sharing her screen, and then like you can just tell her next after every slide you finish, so she can switch to the other slide, right?
I'm ready when they are.
Yeah, yeah, she is sharing her screen now. Yeah. Please move to screen slide 2. Yeah, I'll be on mute. KJ, you can please introduce yourself and take ahead the presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So again, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending upon where you are. My name is Dr. KJ Haywood. It's Kimberly KJ Haywood, but preferred by KJ. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn after the presentation if you'd like. Basically, my background has been in the cyber risk and compliance space for well over 25 years. I have founded 2 companies, more recently, Nomad Cyber Concepts, and built and helped build other enterprises to scale as well over the last couple of decades. I have held leadership roles and worked in the compliance, risk, and or security for large enterprises over my career. I've also presently I serve on a number of different boards. One of the most critical boards I serve on is AI Connect. We have locations here in the US as well as Singapore and Japan, and we focus on education as a nonprofit organization. I serve as the chief governance education advisor for that board, along with a number of other boards I serve. I also presently am an instructor in cyber psychology, which is cyber intel at Collin College here in the Dallas-Fort Worth areas of Texas. And I also have recently published some work over the last 3 years, specifically focused on AI governance and what that means, and more recently launched my first volume 1 of Here We Go Again, Except It's AI. And that is available on Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, and BAM, Books A Million. So I'm going to dive right into what we're going to cover today. So if you can go to the next slide to our agenda, and I'm going to briefly go highlight what we're going to cover for the agenda. So if you can go to our next slide. Thanks. I think they're trying to get to the next slide. So our next slide, we're going to focus on AI governance reality, the risk. Why is it different? Why is AI risk different than any other risk? From principle to operations control, governing AI lifecycle, and making AI governance work in practice. And then what are some key takeaways? The goal is for you to learn in this session. So the goal is to make certain that you understand kind of an idea of what really is AI governance and why is it so uniquely different compared to the traditional GRC domain. So if you can please go to the next slide, and I'll kind of jump right into things. So basically here we're talking about what really works, right? Organizations already have AI policies, responsible AI principles written down somewhere in their enterprise. The challenge though is that those policies rarely translate into operational practice. And take it from someone who's worked and also served large enterprises. even with large enterprises, it's very difficult sometimes to make certain that you have policies that are being truly adopted and followed continuously. That's always been a challenge in risk and compliance. So even more so a challenge with AI. So turning AI policies into operational practices in this era of AI is really, really critical, not only for the infrastructure, but from a user, from a compliance perspective, but also managing the risk while also enabling innovation in their organizations. So the key here is what we're really talking about is how governance survives truly in a real world deployment situation, or how AI governance survives when you have purchased when in the organization, and or when you're trying to actually use the tool from a user's perspective and there's low literacy in the organization. So when AI systems are moving fast, teams are under a great amount of pressure to innovate, and regulatory expectations are always increasing. So what are we going to be looking at? Practical approaches for enterprise governance. That's really what we're going to dive into today. So if you can please go to the next slide. Adopting is accelerating, right? Adopting AI governance. Everyone knows this. That's why I said, you know this. You already know this. This is the resounding, AI is moving rapidly from experimentation to enterprise deployment. AI is embedded in decision making, automation, and analytics. Businesses are adopting AI faster than governance programs mature. I pulled that out because that's what all of us are hearing. And I'm sure you've heard it either in op-ed pieces or white papers. You continuously hear it on platforms, speaking platforms. This is the resounding song that everyone is talking about. But the bottom line here is AI capability growth is truly, as you all know, just common sense. It's outpacing readiness. And it's estimated about 95%, meaning in terms of the pace of AI accelerating compared to governance. And I'm talking about adoption to governance, not the concept of organization and enterprises and institutions adopting AI governance and educating. We're only talking about adoption here. So there are a significant number of organizations that have initially been experimenting with AI kind of in isolated pilots, and they're kind of proof of concepts. There's really nothing wrong with this concept, but organizations are only attempting to become more acclimated to AI. So we get that. It's really important, but the UX, the interface, the actual experience from the user perspectives, they're trying to ensure that there's efficient workflow and productivity as an organization. That's what their end goal is, right? But they're somehow seeing it very different. Very different. AI is being embedded into core business processes, including decision making, analytics. But the issue is that the governance frameworks are often designed after AI adoption has already begun, creating a gap between the capability and the oversight. And so we need to know what you may not know here is that regulators don't care what you're trying to do. Regulators don't care that you're trying to ensure that you have efficient workflows and productivity. What they do know, and what is important, is that regulators are preparing, and I'm talking global, regulators are preparing to fine organizations, which is going to obviously create loss of contracts, reputational damage, and definitely stricter contract terms and risk requirements on organizations that are going to be placed on them. That's what's really happening behind the scenes. So that's the importance, that's part of the importance of AI governance and why it's important for us to understand. So if you can please go to the next slide. Thanks. So AI governance, many organizations have published principles and policies. I mentioned that, right? But the issue is that one of the most common patterns that I see, my organization sees and our team sees, is that organizations that have AI adoption happens kind of organically, which means that there are organizations and teams, or teams within organizations, that are taking ownership of AI, meaning the use of AI, the adoption of AI, even internal designs that they're doing, or enterprise solutions that they're standing up in their own organizations. They are organically doing this, which means that they're coming together collectively and looking at tools, models, their vendors, vendor relationships. But there also a problem in some organizations, and that is that leadership doesn't often have the full visibility into where AI is actually being used, which makes the risk oversight extremely difficult. So the question here is, who provides AI systems? Well, sometimes it's the enterprise, sometimes it is the vendors. Sometimes it is something where they're purchasing because the salesperson is saying, this is the solution that's going to help, again, streamline our business process. So, and of course, that's a part of the vendor. But the adoption of those is who's approving it. Is there an approval process is the bigger question. And in some enterprises, unlike healthcare in the US, and in some regions of the country, and I mean the world, there is an actual governance process. The gap is that there isn't a process in place for most corporate enterprises to adopt approved AI systems. We have the Change Control Board. Their role is to ensure that the integration that has been accepted, a solution that's been adopted, that is actually in the process of being implemented fully, right, and accurately. The system is stood up in the organization. But who owns that risk? If it's an AI risk, well, the enterprise, right? Is it the C-suite? Not necessarily. It's typically the owners of that business that are going to own the risk. Now, who's responsible for ensuring that there is no risk? That would be us. That would be you. That would be me, as employees, as a part of an organization. But how are models being monitored? That's a big question. And the bigger question is, that's where the gap is. Are models being monitored? Not so much how, but it's actually a hybrid of both. How are models being monitored? Are they buying solutions and tools that are helping them monitor AI usage, hands-on keyboard, identifying shadow AI? Are they doing those particular things? And those are questions that's where we have the gap here. These are questions that are not being truly vetted in organizations. If you can please go to the next slide. So this is the breakdown. Rapid AI lifecycle, outpacing oversight mechanisms. So when governance really fails, usually it isn't caused by like bad intentions, typically. And I'm talking about enterprise related, right? They occur because AI development happens across multiple disciplines. Data scientists, engineers, security, legal, as well as the business teams. And there's really no single group that owns the entire life cycle. It really is a collective. So without clear accountability of governance, becomes fragmented, and oversight becomes inconsistent. So what do? And why? Well, we've got the breakdown because it's unclear accountability. The breakdown is because there's unchecked bias. There's inconsistent oversight, as I mentioned in the previous slide. There is increased organizational risk. And obviously there's data misuse. But in the next slide, we're really going to talk about why AI is so different. Well, this is a part of the reason why AI is so different, right? Traditional software behaves predictable because it follows a fixed set of rules and guidelines and standards, whereas AI systems is highly unpredictable. When you are really going, and you've played, if any of you have played ball, like this is the illustration on the slide, is bowling. When you never know when you're bowling, your hope, even the high level professionals, you never know. So it's unpredictable what is going to happen with that ball. And it might depend on a number of different variables: the speed of the ball, where the pin is situated, if the pin was set properly, if the pin is tilting and you can't visually see it. So there's so many different variables. And AI governance is similar in the concept that there are various variables when we're talking about ensuring oversight of AI. And I don't mean just AI development, I'm also talking about AI use. So AI systems do behave differently because you got trained data and it can be produced problematic outcomes. Bad data in, bad data out, right? Or bad data in, bad outcomes. It's also algorithmic biases that we have to talk about, things like that. That means that systems can only behave differently depending on the input it receives, which produces a new layer of uncertainty that governance must manage. And that's one of the key elements here. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I like, this is an image that I wanted to quickly share with you. I hope you can see this, and you're welcome to take a screenshot. I don't even remember if I created this or not. I've been doing this so long, but we move the needle with AI governance, going beyond good intentions and policies to become a set of daily actions. And that moving the needle, if you can go to the next slide. Moving the needle really requires us as data scientists, us as cybersecurity practitioners, us as users. It's our responsibility every day. So how do we change the threat landscape? How do we make sure as enterprise leaders, as practitioners, as future, some of you will, I'm sure, decide that you want to pivot into AI governance. AI governance also is becoming literally its own domain. So if that's the case, then what are some of the threat challenges in our landscape that we really need to consider, right? New risk categories that go way beyond the traditional software thing. What makes AI particularly challenging from security is the model itself becomes a target. So it's not just data, right? Well, data obviously builds a model, but it's also the model itself. It's what is it capturing? So there is issues of data poisoning, prompt injection, adversarial attacks. You all know this, right? But what we need to take in consideration is that attackers will attempt to manipulate training data. They have been doing it today, and we're in 2026. Today is March 11th, 2026. They're doing it as we speak. They're attempting to manipulate training data, exploit prompts, influence model outputs right now. So this means protecting AI requires us to think way beyond the traditional way of thinking that we've done in the past. So we need to think about Infrastructure security. Yes, that was a part of the traditional GRC mindset that we had not that long ago, and we still do. So what we need to consider is how models themselves can be manipulated. That's the threat landscape that we're dealing with, the how. So the unpredictability. So what you see on the image is an unpredictable. It's a volcano. Some volcanoes are stagnant for many, many decades, sometimes a century, and then all of a sudden they erupt. It's the unpredictability of it. How do we prevent and get in front of that explosion of a threat landscape before something traumatic or unfortunate happens to any enterprise and or any society? So you please go to the next slide. Thank you. So we have different attack surfaces. Traditional security kind of focuses on these three areas: infrastructure, applications, and network. What AI introduces is the training data sets, the model pipelines, and the prompt pipelines, the prompt interference, right? And the third parties, which have always been, some level of a high risk for organizations. I don't believe that that's going to go away anytime soon, because threat actors are looking for the easiest and fastest way, right, to steal information or exploit information. So in traditional cybersecurity, we typically focused on protecting the networks, the servers, and the applications, right? But in AI systems, we add an entirely new element, and that is to introduce vulnerabilities that include data used for training, model pipelines, and interfaces. So using it to interact with the model. For each of those elements that expand over the attack surface, and that's really important. I'm going to just pause for a moment there. Generative AI allows attackers then to create thousands of personalized phishing emails in minutes. Many of you have probably read or know or personally have experience of this. And this is happening today. So the messages often used in public data from LinkedIn, company websites, and social media is what they're taking advantage of. Sometimes they appear to be legitimate, and they're not. They can mimic professional tone, making messages harder to detect. Traditional phishing is not as popular, right, with threat actors. I want to go after the LinkedIn, the websites, the social media. I want to really focus on the data that's live, that's real. We're posting, we're social media. We're living in an era of social media. So of course, we're going to be huge targets. But these examples are really only the tip of the ice. They do, however, demonstrate how AI increases the speed and the scale of cyber threats, which must be addressed through stronger awareness, security awareness, AI governance awareness, and AI governance literacy. Those are really, really important areas that we as future practitioners, you as future practitioners, and some of you that are presently serving in leadership roles. Those are considerations that our organizations and we must continue to adopt. Next slide, please. Security alone is not enough. And I'm saying that over and over and over. But security focuses on protecting systems, and we must have security and governance working collaboratively in organizations, which typically we've shifted to what we call InfoSec. InfoSec is a combination of cybersecurity and governance under one umbrella in many organizations, and that's great. but governance ensures responsibility and oversight, right? So they both have a very critical element and role in enterprises and protecting their risk. But AI enablement equals accountability for AI decision plus risk assessment across the life cycle plus regulatory and compliance alignment. And forgive me, I'm working backwards here. Typically, it's the plus plus equals. So I'm doing kind of a mathematical equation here. So if you look at the accountability for AI decisions, you add that to risk management across the life cycle, and then you add additionally the regulatory and compliance alignment, you have there an AI governance enablement. You have something at the baseline to start organizations. Now, if you notice, I said security protecting organizations. That mathematical equation, I'm talking about not math, but in this case, it's actual words. But that equation that I put together, it allows the combination of both to work cohesively. So AI governance ensures accountability for the decision. For the AI systems and ensures that the risk and the ethics of the compliance are addressed. But the security is going to protect the systems from malicious activity. So again, working hand in hand. A governance answers a different question sometimes though here. Should the system exist in the first place? And how should it be used responsibly? And that's an AI governance inquiry. The next session we're going to go into is to tackle the principles to operational controls. And while some organizations have again published AI principles over the past several years, they've adopted and published, meaning published that they're adopting it. The problem is that principles alone don't tell engineers or developers what and why they are expected to do differently. Without operational processes, and those principles remain kind of aspirational, as I would say, rather than really actionable. So I want to dive into the next slide, please. Next slide. So the operations here of AI governance is not your standalone 1, 2, 3, 4 step. And that is why AI governance in its own right is its own domain, and has been becoming its own domain. Although we're in the, as far as AI governance is concerned, from a word or a terminology or a, AI governance is marketable, the term, the complexity of building an operations and AI governance program, it takes so much more than just, adopting what we've done in the past and standing up existing controls that we've stood in the past, adopting the same principles that we've done. And I've mentioned that in the previous conversations I've had with you this morning. So it is complex. And what you see on the screen, the image illustrates that if you are a pilot, there are so many different variables of how to operate and control that plane, right? And so it's, again, similar in the concept of operational controls, adopting AI principles and how I do that. My controls are going to be varied, but all of those controls combined will drive a better and stronger enterprise. Can you please go to the next slide? So the problem with AI principles, oh, I'm sorry, the slide before that with the piggy on it. The piggy bank, the problem with AI principles, the slide before that, thanks. Many organizations publish principles such as fairness, transparency, accountability, and safety, right? But principles do not define the operations controls and the mechanisms that are often kind of undefined. So what does that mean? So the common issue is that governance is going to fail. If those principles are just all you're working off of, which is we have adopted principles as an organizations. And these are tools that I'm sharing with you today that you can take back to your enterprises, or things that you can leverage if you're looking for work for organizations in the AI governance practice and principle space, right? These are some baseline information that I'm sharing with you about what are the common failures here. And the organization may publicly commit to fairness and AI ethical use. It says that, we say that, right? But the question deeply is, internally, there are no processes to validate whether those commitments are actually being met. Effective governance requires verification mechanisms, not just policy statements. And so we are taking governance to a whole different level of adoption that we've never seen and never had to do before, right? AI is so new to many of us in the corporate space. So we're going to another domain, another dimension, I should say. If you can please go to the next slide. Ethics without enforcement. This slide is going to be very common about organizations publishing their commitment. AI is fair. I have no testing procedures. I have no documentation of training. I have no review of approval process. It validates what I mentioned earlier, which is that equals failure. If you don't have, these are baseline. AI governance in itself alone has probably, if we were to put it in a control concept, not including even NIST, which NIST itself has well over 200 controls of adoption of AI principles and governance. However, we also have ISO that has its own set of controls. And this is just a small snapshot of, without enforcing ethics, of things that are not happening. And this is what it looks like. Governance exists on paper. So what we need to do as enterprise professionals, as students, as leaders, our combination is that we really need to start tapping into adoption, but doing it from a holistic perspective. If you can please go to the next slide. I really want to talk about translating principles into controls and what's really fair. So what's truly fair is that principles really have to be translated into baseline operational practices. Hence why you have the ISO and you have NIST, right? It gives you some baseline operations. But fairness, bias testing, model documentation, accountability, defined model ownership, safety, adversarial, and red teaming testing, those are really critical components that you can utilize as well in terms of how do I translate my baseline principles and adoption of things into really operational practices? Where do I kind of get a start from? So the key is to shift organizations that must make in translating abstract ideas into a very specific, defined operational practices. And that does include the areas of what you see on the slide here, which is the fairness, the bias testing, transparency. And I do want to highlight the latter are what's on the slide, which is adversarial and red team testing. Most organizations would not even think, or haven't, not yet. And again, no fault of their own, because AI governance and AI is still very, very new. And it's very much in its infancy to many enterprises. It is not their fault that they don't know what they don't know, because we're all learning as a society globally more and more about the adoption of AI and making certain that we are adopting AI in the best practices to govern properly and for use. And if you can please go to the next slide. So governance requires structure. This probably is no surprise to any of you if you know what governance is. Governance always requires structure. So operational governance does require enterprise AI inventory, model risk classification, define approval workflows, and life cycle monitoring and review. And I use the word "and" as more of a terminology. But what I do want you to make certain is that you understand it's not an and or. What you see here is just those key elements. There's so much more. These are the building blocks. When you build a home, and if you started with a smaller home, then your second home and you want it larger, you're going to add more features to that home. So hence, with governance, you're going to add more restrictions, more controls. You're going to add elements to it as it relates to your vendors and the legal contract requirements that you have your vendors. So the contracts may change, the language may change, the solutions you may change and may adopt depending upon the size of your organization. So the adoption and the structure is going to always look uniquely different from enterprise to enterprise. So we're going to go and segue into governing with AI lifecycle. If you can go to the next slide. So here we're talking about governing with the lifecycle, SDLC. This is familiar with you if you've been in cybersecurity and you know cybersecurity, you're already familiar with this. The idea here is that you want to govern with within the life cycle. You want to add and integrate security and governance as you're going through the life cycle. This SDLC life cycle is really focused on applications versus AI, but it's just an illustration to remind you that when we talked about application design and development prior to AI kind of taking over, we also talked about governing any aspects of any type of SDLC process. Governing meaning we adopted practices, policies, and procedures, documentations, we documented testing, we provided some oversight, analysis requirements to determine some level of, is this the appropriate solution? Is this something that we can actually go to market with, this solution? So adopting governing and adopting AI governance in the governance process and security process throughout the life cycle when you're doing model development and design is still the same. If you can please go to the next slide. So AI risk across the life cycle. Next slide, please. Remember that AI risk does not begin when the model is deployed. It doesn't. It begins much earlier in the design of the development phase. So there is a high, low, medium risk. Are you adopting AI? Are you designing AI models and looking at the high, low, medium risk aspect of it throughout the process of the stages as you're doing the development? Design process. How do you integrate low, medium, high? How are you identifying risk? Development, same. Deployment, same. High, low, medium. And so risk can merge into any of the stages of the life cycle. That is the beauty of AI. It is uniquely different from building your traditional SDLC models, because it truly can be integrated in every phase of the design process, the deployment process, the operations process. So governance, therefore, must address the entire life cycle of the system from the initial stage, which is the design, all the way through operations. Next slide, please. Data governance is critical. Our next slide is data governance. So key risk we talked about, I'm just reiterating here: data poisoning, data sensitive data exposure, and poor quality data. Data governance is critical. You know this. This is a duh. So it's you know this. Of course it's critical. AI systems are only as reliable as the data that we train them in. And if the data is complete, or it's biased, or if it's manipulated, the model will produce flawed outputs, period. It always will. It's consistent. Yet another reason why stronger data governance practices are foundational to AI governance. So governance requires data provenance, tracking, validation processes, quality validation processes, privacy and access controls. Again, this is a very short list. There's so much more. So if we're going to make governance work in practice, this is what we need to do. So let me walk you through really quickly what AI governance looks like. Next slide, please. Next slide. Aligning the organization requires cross-functional collaboration. Security teams manage technical controls. AI governance cannot be owned by a single department. So security teams will manage the technical controls. The risk teams will manage model risk exposure. The compliance teams will ensure regulatory alignment, and the business unit owns the use cases. I mentioned earlier about the combination of having organizations and having even you individually suggest adoption of alignment of the best practices to guard against any type of AI threats. And again, it's not going to be 100% proof, but from a governance perspective, if you have alignment across functional collaboration, that clearly is going to give your organization, your enterprise, a leg up compared to their competitor who may not be doing that. So working across the security teams, the risk teams, and this goes even beyond what you see on the screen. I would even add human resources. I would add your data scientists. I would add your product teams. So it's a combination of the collaboration of the teams. Yes, this is an AI governance best practice. This is not Dr. Haywood saying this. This is truly in the domain of best practices to adopt AI governance. Having a collaborative cross-functional team is essential. So clear ownership across these groups that allows governance to function effectively. That's the key here. Next slide, please. So how do you really measure governance, especially with AI moving so quickly? These are, again, some high level things. It's not the whole bag of chips. It's just a few of the chips. But governance has to be measurable from the perspective of percentage of AI systems and inventory, right? Governance can't just rely on assumption. It has to be measurable. Organizations need to measure that helps them understand how mature governance practices are and where improvement is really needed. So without measuring that governance, it really becomes really difficult to sustain and to continue to adopt something when you don't have the measurement and the outcomes. The bias testing coverage, that's something again, organizations would be best practice, great best practice. Percentage of AI systems that are inventory. That's a typical practice of the old, right? We inventory what's in. We classify what type of data that's a part of our existing applications. We do data classification. In this case, we do AI systems inventory. We also do data classification as a part of that. Frequency of model reviews. Are you actually looking at the models and actually reviewing and ensuring those models and the data within those models that are being outputted is not stale, or that is not somehow, again, it needs to be ensured that there is minimal bias in that. So are they being reviewed consistently? And then, of course, incident response readiness. That's an adoption that should never go away. So metrics does allow organizations to track governance maturity, and that's really the key of where we want to go. So what are our real true key takeaways today? What can we highlight that really we walked away with today that at least illustrates kind of some high level things? So if you can please go to the next slide. So here's my final thought here. We covered for the key takeaways. We talked about governance, the current governance challenges and the key policies, right? Again, policies, right? Principles, but it's more than that. Understanding the transition from principle-based AI policies to operational controls. And what does that look like? What's the best way of adopting AI aligning security, risk, and compliance and business ownerships across the AI initiative? The collaboration aspects of that. The designing of governance that supports speed, scale, and regulatory readiness. And the practical approach to measuring AI governance effectiveness. So my final thought is for governance, AI governance, most must move beyond the policy framework. And we're saying this as an AI firm, AI governance operational firm, that we're having to educate many enterprises to tell them this is so much more beyond the typical policy framework stand up. It's not going to be good enough just to have controls in place. And so we have to take this to a whole different level. Again, we're going to another dimension when we're talking about risk and compliance as it pertains to artificial intelligence. So the policies become embedded in operational practices. That's important. The frameworks have to become embedded in the operational practices. The risk has to become embedded in the operational practices. The oversight of model design, the oversight of data, all of those things are really important. So organizations that succeed will be those, in my opinion, that will integrate security and governance and into how AI systems are designed, deployed, and monitored. So those are my final key takeaways. I hope you were able to gather some key information and insights today through the presentation. And again, we apologize for the inconvenience of the technical glitches, but thank you so much for your patience. And please feel free, if you can please go to the next slide. I added some resources and reference materials for your knowledge, just for research if you'd like. And you can look into those articles. Some of them are relevant articles as to the why we need AI governance in place in our enterprises. And then, like I mentioned, I have a book that I released in December of 2025. And so you're welcome to please take a look at that book, purchase that book. It gives you a lot of detailed insights that is a cross collaboration of thought leaders, experts, as well as it relates to security, governance, and legal compliance. So thank you very much. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's my book. And if you have any questions, I don't know if we have time, but I'm hoping we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. KJ, for delivering such an insightful and informative session. We found the webinar very engaging and hope it was valuable for you as well. Before we begin with the Q&A part, I would like to inform all the attendees that today's session is synced with EC Council CEH certification. CEH certification is mapped to a variety of roles in the cybersecurity industry, including ethical hacker, security analyst, security consultant, site administrator, and network management executive. LinkedIn lists over 1,000 jobs seeking the ethical hacking skills worldwide, and individuals holding the CEH certification earn as average annual salary of USD $96,000 in the US. If you're interested in learning more, please participate in the poll that's going to be conducted now. Let us know your preferred mode of training and we will reach out to you soon. If you're interested to know more, kindly take part in the poll that's going to be conducted now. KJ, we will take now 2 minutes to allow our audience to submit their answers in the ongoing poll. Once the poll ends, we will start with the Q&A session. So audiences, if you have answered the poll already, please drop your questions in the question tab. Thank you. KJ, shall we start with the Q&A?
Okay, I'm ready.
Thank you. Our first question to you is, what are the monitoring requirements for an AI model? Is this to monitor whether it is hallucinating after a few months of use or something else? Can you give an example?
So that's a good question. As far as monitoring the AI model, there's different elements, and because I'm not a data scientist, I'll give you a high level answer. As far as model oversight, you do want to take a look at the training. So part of model design is ensuring that there is a significant amount of training. And as you're doing that, you are documenting any type of abnormalities while you're going through the training process. So that's one aspect of how you want to ensure that you are providing oversight to the model design during that life cycle process. And the other aspect is mining the data, which is typically the standard. If you're designing a very strong model, you obviously want to mine the data. But are you documenting, again, are you documenting what you're discovering? And will you be able to explain it to an organization or enterprise if it is a solution that you're developing? And questions around risk. So I hope I answered your question. So you do want to take a look at risk, but you also want to make certain that you're monitoring that aspect and documenting the work that you're doing as you're going through the model design process.
Thank you for answering that question. Our next question to you is, what real-world AI skills should professionals focus on to stay relevant in the future of cybersecurity?
What real world elements? Well, artificial intelligence for certain. Quantum is going to change, and it is already changing. Robotics is already coming. I have encouraged students to please make certain that you continue to retool and skill yourself. Get as many certifications around artificial intelligence as you possibly can. EC Council itself has a wonderful suite of certifications that you can certainly leverage. But I also ensure that you do your homework and research. There are positions in the cybersecurity space that literally have not been developed yet. So you are probably, if you're shifting into cybersecurity, artificial intelligence is a very big aspect of retooling yourself if you've already been in this space, or ensuring that you enhance your cybersecurity education and inclusive of AI.
Thank you for answering that question. Next question to you is, are these governance principles and best practices defined in any published framework, or are they only based on experience drawn from traditional governance practices?
That is a great question. Yes, actually, you can find best practices at OneTrust. OneTrust is an institute that focuses specifically on governance and privacy. It's an international institute. You can also identify white papers that they develop, as well as IAPP. IAPP is Professional for Privacy and Privacy Professionals. Again, a global institute, and they have a number of different white papers on AI governance and best practices. But you're going to find the best practices pretty much with OneTrust, because they have been in the forefront of governance and AI governance many years before it was even popular. So I would definitely take a look at that organization, because everything I shared with you in terms of best practices is not just from Nomad Cyber Concepts. We adopt best practices based upon what the industry dictates. But great question.
Thank you, KJ. Due to time constraint, we'll take last two questions for the day. Our next question to you is, if we fast forward 5 years, what will separate organizations that implemented AI governance successfully from those that merely wrote policies but failed in practice?
Oh, wow. I really like you. I love that question. That is a really great question. Okay, my lens in the next 5 years is that if governance is adopted in enterprises, regardless of size, what they're going to find is that their users are going to be more intelligent and more risk conscious. They will also identify that they will have models in their enterprises that are effectively being used, that there is minimal to little bias. And I'm obviously, bias doesn't go away or eradicate, but there's minimal bias issues that they're dealing with customer external to their customers. Their customers are very happy with the solutions and tools because they're being properly vetted before they're being utilized in enterprises. Workflows look really strong and good. You're talking about an organization that is highly successful, which means that not only is it generating better revenue, and it's placed itself ahead of its competitors.
Thank you for answering that question. Last question for you is, as AI systems become more autonomous and capable of improving themselves, How should governance framework evolve to ensure humans remain meaningfully in control of critical decisions?
We as humans, number one, we need to start with literacy. I've said that 1,000 times. It doesn't matter the best model in the world if you don't have users that understand what you're doing and how to use your tool, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So starting with the concept of making certain that your tool has enough information to allow and guide a user how to use what you're using. As it relates to governance and enterprise use, I think the best way to address that is to work with a cross collaboration, like I mentioned before. I hope I'm answering the question because I'm trying to recall. If you can ask the question, Shipley, again, please. That last question, because I want to make sure I answer them.
Yeah. As AI systems becomes more autonomous and capable of improving themselves, how should governance frameworks evolve to ensure humans remain meaningfully in control of critical decisions?
Okay, so the human in the loop concept, I'm not certain if you've heard of it, but the human in the loop concept is important because that's critical throughout the entire process of the use, design, and development of the process. Again, like I mentioned in the previous answer to another question, you want to also ensure that you as a developer or an enterprise as they are developing, that they're documenting every aspect of that. But there's also oversight that includes different elements and different aspects of best practices of who also is providing that oversight. Is it just you, the designer, or is there someone in the security team that's looking at that as well? So again, I would say the combination of that, especially with quantum being very, very close nearby, especially embedded with robotics. Typically, organizations that are doing that level of design, they are including security professionals into the rooms to talk about risk as it relates to cyber risk. Because you're going to need a full team, a collaborative team. Hopefully that answers to the best of my ability. Again, I would say collaboration with key stakeholders and experts, not just a development team. Please don't silo. That's very dangerous.
Thank you once again to our outstanding speaker, Dr. KJ, for addressing those questions and for delivering a great presentation while sharing your expertise with our global audience. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking for more sessions with you. Before we conclude the webinar, Dr. KJ, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Before we conclude the webinar, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
Yes, the last final message is please make certain that if you don't have certifications in AI, please make sure you continue to retool yourself, regardless of what area of service that you've provided. If you've been in the business for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, please make sure you continue to educate and retool yourself by adopting certifications. That is going to leverage you not only in your career path, but it's also going to give you enough information so that you can make good decisions as future leaders and practitioners.
Thank you so much, Dr. KJ, for the message to our audience. Before we end the session, I would like to announce our next Cyber Talk session, Secure First, Lead Boldly, Women Leading Proactive Defense, which is scheduled for March 12, 2026. This session is an expert presentation by Preeti Gupta, Chief Enterprise AI Cybersecurity Advisor, GRC. To register for this session, please do go and visit our website www.eccu.edu/cybertalks. The link is given in the chat section. Hope to see you all on March 12, which is tomorrow. With this, we end the session. You may now disconnect your lines. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. KJ. Pleasure having you.